to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Veerman, and I am joined by my friend and trusted producer, Max Kerman, as well as our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. And we are all just coming off of MMVA weekend, which was exactly what you would imagine it would be. The big show, the party. We are going to get into that stuff in a bit. But first, today on the show, we are talking to Brent Butt of Corner Gas fame. You know his show. It's around here on CTV and Bell Media for years, 6 seasons originally, and now they have a new animated show out in season 1 right now that you can see on Sundays at 8:30 on CTV. We will get to Brent in a bit. We had a great conversation with him in Montreal at Just for Laughs.
And a digital dessert with him.
And a digital dessert with Brent Butt that will be aired at some point.
And he had a really interesting reaction to it, I'll say that.
Yeah, you talked about this.
On
the JFL episode.
Well, I'll say it again, in case you didn't hear the JFL episode.
Yeah, he liked you a lot.
Yeah.
What was his quote?
He said I had like the intelligence of a 6-year-old. He's not wrong. But.
Was that it?
Yeah, he's very intuitive.
Yeah, that seems meaner than I remember. Yeah, so lots going on. We're going to get to the MMVAs in a bit. But before we do that, I moderated a Q&A with good friend of the pod, Lights.
Yeah.
On a Saturday night.
You're becoming like Toronto's go-to moderator guy. Well, actually, we had a funny line about you the other night where it was like, you are the king. You're the king of moderation. And you're like, that's the first time anybody's ever said that about you.
That's a perfect line.
Yeah.
Did you say that during the Q&A?
No, it was while you were in the MMVA, in the studio doing the digital desserts during the MMVAs. Everybody was standing around. We were talking about the Star Trek thing I'm doing. I guess we can announce that. I'm there for Fan Expo in Toronto that's happening this weekend, which you might be hearing this just before we do that. I'm going to be moderating the Star Trek Discovery panel at Fan Expo, which is amazing because if you've listened to this,
that's a huge deal for you.
You know I'm a huge Star Trek The Next Generation fan, so it's going to be awesome to hang out with that cast in front of 3,000 fans in a ballroom and moderate. So then after we were talking about all that, that was when I said to everybody standing around, like Justin Stockman and The Nut and Mike D and Max and everybody, that's what I said, and everybody exploded laughing. Where's that thing where you're happy because it's a good line, but then you're also like, oh, do these people think I'm an alcoholic? Yeah. So anyway, I moderated this Q&A with Lights, which was great. And it's funny because obviously she's a friend and we know her, and she's been on the show twice now, and we party together. She's super cool. And people are like, oh, does it ever do you get nervous when you do something like that? Or do you get, is the prep all whatever? And I'm just like, honestly, as long as you're doing it with somebody that's like, if you don't know what the person's like or what they're going to do under pressure, or when you have like a packed room, and so we're at Indigo and it's like slam. There's like over like 100 people there.
It's in the Inn Center, right downtown Toronto.
Yeah, it's a bookstore though, so you can imagine. So it's like they got all these Lights fans hanging out. People are standing room only. Actually, Dan Hamilton was in the back. I could see that tall drink of water just watching the festivities. Afterward, I was like, "Did you get any social media?" He's like, "Oh no, maybe I." Sorry, man. I could tell he was coming off.
I was supposed to be there, by the way, and I can explain why I wasn't.
Yeah. Anyway, we did it, and immediately the microphones, they were wireless mics. Stop. They didn't work. So like we walk out there, big ovation for Lights. We sit down. I'm ready to get into like sort of my stuff, and it's like, so it's all off the mic, and then hers kind of works. So then I take hers and I ask my question and it goes back to her, and then she answers, but then hers cuts out. So anyway, we had to sort of do this improv where then it was
that gives me so anxious to listen to you.
But it can create a funny energy if you can play it right.
So this is what I'm getting at. So because Lights is like just super like loose and cool and knows how to go with the flow, we totally just kind of like figured out we're going to use one mic. We're going to sort of play the bit up a bit. And then once like, if the mic cuts out again, we'll just yell to the crowd. Anyway, she was great. And if you're in a situation like that, like you said, the anxiety of the mic's not working and there's over 100 people staring at you, there's a lot of people I could be on a stage with and be like, this is going to be bad. She was awesome and handled amazingly, and it ended up being a great night, and I think her fans really appreciated it. And the reason I bring this up though is because after I was done doing the moderation and I went to go talk to Danny Hams, this guy came up to me and he's like, "Hey, Mike, like I'm a fan of the podcast." I'm like, "Oh man, thanks." He's like, "I just live like downtown Toronto, and I wanted to come out and check it out." I was like, "Thanks so much, man." I'm like, "What's your name?" He's like Matt. I'm like, "Oh, what's your last name?" He's like, "Perry." I'm like Matthew Perry from Friends, and he's like,
"Whoa, that's huge."
You didn't recognize it?
It wasn't the real Matthew Perry. Well, although this guy is a real person. So I was like, "Oh, so you're like?" He's like, "Yes." He's like, "It's like a funny icebreaker when I'm talking to people." I'm like, "But you go by Matt Perry." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, I would just totally lean in and do Matthew Perry. But he was the nicest guy, and I wanted to give him a huge shout out because he tweeted at us after he chatted, and he asked. He did say, "I thought Shane was going to be here, shooting you with the Cobra Cam," and I was like, "It's funny you say that. Shane was supposed to be here."
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
And then he asked me, are Max and Shane like they are on the podcast? And I said, no, they're both raging egomaniacs, but we make it work somehow. No, I didn't. I said that Max is pretty much exactly as he is, and I said that Shane off mic is actually more shy and kind of introverted and a little bit more socially awkward than you might see on the podcast. Would you say that's accurate?
Well, it depends. It depends if you're my buddy. I'm not that shy.
Not at all. No, I mean like in like situations where he's like on the podcast. You know, you'll tell a story. You'll be very open.
Oh yeah. I don't really do that in public.
No, exactly. Anyway, so shout out to Matt Perry from Friends and from Indigo.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Was he a fan of digital desserts?
We didn't go that deep. I should have asked.
Yeah, Shane, whether it's on the podcast or not on the podcast, you're always a little neurotic that you're being left behind. Or not thought about.
If anyone who listens to the pod knows, I'm usually right. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I was left out of last week's Open.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. This is the first time you guys have been on this pod together since that happened.
Texting chains, etc. Things. Yeah. Remember, I think it all started at Key to Bala.
Oh, geez.
6 years ago.
Okay, we're not therapy session. Yeah. Jesus Christ. But guys, like I said, the MMVAs just happened, and we were all we were out there, man. We were trying to do work during the show. We all went to the after parties.
But we all had kind of different experiences, though.
Sure. I feel like we only kind of intersected maybe like 5 or 6 times. There was like Maxie, high five, passing you at a party, and then on to we just did our own thing. But last call was 4 a.m. and I looked around and I felt like everybody was in it to win it.
Yeah, it was a great night.
Yeah.
I'll go first, and then we'll just go around the thing.
Sure. You hit it.
What happened? So I'm the kind of guy who, as you know, likes to cram in, 19 things in one day. Each thing kind of lasts about 15 minutes, and then I got to go. Like right now, for example, we're shooting a music video for our new single.
Yeah.
And we're technically on like a lunch break. and
you're fitting this in?
Yeah, the studio is like a 20-minute Uber ride away, but I like got in it, and I already texted Mark Myers, the director, saying like, shoot Anthony in the next scene, so because I'm not going to be there.
Move my close up. I'm potting.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so on the day of the MMVAs, I was trying to squeeze like a bunch of things in. I was in Hamilton. I was running around there. I was going to take the Go bus in, go to Top Man because I had to pick up some clothing, get a haircut, then meet up for the red carpet. I had like all this stuff I had to do, and then so I was on the Go bus and. Lately, tell me how I should feel about this. Lately, sometimes when I'm on the Go bus, I love taking the Go bus. Like, because my house in Hamilton is right next to the Go bus. It's literally in my mind like a personal chauffeur right to downtown Toronto. Setup. And I can hop on a Bixie bike in Toronto and just go wherever I need to go. I kind of love the freedom. But sometimes I feel a little goofy that, like, people in Hamilton like think like we're this like massive like millionaire rock band and like what's he doing riding the bus? It just might be kind of weird.
Yeah.
And so I usually just I generally keep a low profile.
Well, you're one of those types that put a bag beside you so no one sits beside you.
Well, there's a bit of that. But you know what? If it's busy enough, obviously I recognize and I take the bag off and I'm happy to have a seat partner. But anyway, so we're taking the bus in and I'm already late. I already take the later bus than I wanted to. And the bus pulls over the side of the highway and I take my headphones out and it turns out there's been this belligerent woman like for the first 25 minutes of the bus ride like just giving it to the driver for no reason.
Whoa.
So the driver, I can kind of hear what's going on, but everyone's still a little bit confused and the driver's called the OPP to show up. This has never happened before. I've been taking that bus for 15 years at this point. And so I was like, oh, this is like a weird situation, but it was also pissing me off because it was ruining my schedule.
Places to be.
I had to go to Top Man, I had to get a haircut, and then I had to walk the red carpet.
You were about to become the belligerent woman.
Yeah, I was like, hurry the fuck up. Yeah. So, and then everyone's sort of looking around, and the more people are looking around, the more people they realize that I'm on the bus too.
The people's champs.
Yeah. And then these like two like teenage girls come up to me. She's like, they're all nervous, like, and I was also kind of tired at this point too. It was like, are you in the Arkells? But like saying it loud enough for the rest of the bus to hear. But I didn't want to like start doing picture time in the middle of the bus where the OPP is like on arresting this woman. I was like, this is just too much for me. So I was like, so I just kind of like in a very low voice was like, yes, I am. We'll talk about this when we get off the bus in Toronto. and then they scurried away.
But they have all the info they need, don't they?
No, but they're
you thought they were going to try and set up for photos,
and they did. And when I got to Toronto, they did want a photo, so I was right. But I kind of had to. So then I got to Toronto. I like got on the Bixie bike. It's like fucking hot. I'm just like riding around.
So
town.
hot on Sunday.
Brutal. Walk the red carpet, and the night ended up being really fun. It's like MMVAs are always a little exciting because you see a lot of people in the Canadian music community that you'd run into regularly at Canadian music events, like, the Juno Awards or a festival or this or that. But then there's also the big American dogs.
Yeah.
That
you get to schmooze with.
Yeah, that you kind of get to see. So the big one for me was Tyra Banks.
This is my favorite part of the early MMVAs.
Yeah, you were with me.
Yeah. Max comes up and he wants to see you and I, Shane, because we're at our desk prepping for the the sort of evening of shooting digital desserts. And Maxie comes up with manager Ash, and we're like, oh, hey, lots of hugs, whatever. And you're like, let's go walk around the party a bit. So we go down, and it's pretty early on. And me, you, and manager Ash are standing in the hallway, and manager Ash goes, oh, there's Tyra Banks. And then Max goes, oh my God. He's like, should I ask for a photo? I'm not going to ask for it. Should I? And then Tyra's like slowly approaching, but she's got like a huge entourage, right? And then just as she comes like walking up, Max goes, hey, Tyra. And then she like looks at him and
she smiles.
She smiles. Yeah. And he goes, could we do a quick photo? She goes, sorry, no, I can't. But she never broke her stride and kept walking. Max goes, no, I understand. It's cool. You go do your thing.
Oh man.
Actually, I don't even think she said it. I think her handler said it.
It was her that said, she said sorry or something. Okay. And then Max just turned back around to me and Ash and just kind of like sligged. And I exploded laughing. I was like, we were talking about that on the podcast. It was so funny, but I love that you went for it. And then you said that was like my all-time crush. I had to try it.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, man.
So that's what you'd call a humbling experience, right?
Oh, big time. But I'm kind of used to that. That's always been kind of my role. Like in my friend groups, I was recounting the time it was like the second day of university at McMaster, and I rounded up the guys on my floor, and I was like, guys, we're gonna find a kegger. I heard about a kegger. It's right down the street. I'm taking you there. And at the time, I was wearing like this John Lennon like style hat that he kind of wore around the Hard Day's Night.
Yeah, like that little cap he would wear.
The little
kind
cap,
of like a driver's
paperboy cap.
Yeah, no, not quite like that. It's more like a limo driver's cap.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So we pull up to the house in Westdale, and it's like a football player's kegger, and I'm like, hey, we're here for the kegger, and then the guys on the front porch go, nice hat. And then I turn around and it's like, guys, I think it's $10.
Oh my God. Hamilton in the mid 2000s.
Yeah,
that word was being thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I was called it almost every day.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So the night was great. The one thing that I took from the night was I went to Fran's with manager Ash and Lights at like 4 a.m. to get some food, and it was. This is a really. You guys are going to roll your eyes when I tell you this because you're going to go like, yeah, that's so obvious. But basically this, some guy recognized Lights and was just talking to Lights like about business stuff. Like he clearly was like kind of in the industry and sort of directing all of the attention at Lights and just asking her questions and kind of catching up. And you could tell Lights like didn't know who this guy was really, but she was kind of just being polite and doing the thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, get this guy out of here. And then some fan came up, and again, just Lights like, no one's recognizing old Maxie boy here. And I thought, I was like, sometimes that I imagine, when I'm hanging out with Dan Hamilton or whatever, and you guys have to sit through that stuff. I don't know how you guys do it even once, because I had that experience happen to me one time, and I'd be like, get the fuck out of here.
So is it because you want the attention, or it's just annoying when someone else...
It's just annoying. But overall, it was an awesome night. We went to this fancy club, then we went to the Horseshoe. But you guys get into that.
My night, I was kind of just there to support Shane because we decided to do, like in the past, for people that listen to the pod, you know that we've usually been in this big thing called the Fishbowl Studio, and we will take whoever comes in. Memorably, our first year, Shamar Moore came in. Actually, our first year, we were in a closet, and we got we did get Shawn Mendes that year, actually.
We did, yeah.
But it was a pretty funny experience. And then the next year, we were in the big studio. We got Shamar Moore, Shane's future wife, Alex, and your girlfriend Lauren were serving drinks. It was very fun. Game 7 of the NBA Finals were on. Yeah. The next year after that, we did the M&M's Lounge, and we got Camila Cabello.
Post Malone,
that was huge. This year, we were like, what we do as far as the conversations with the celebrities, it's not really conducive to like these 2 or 3 minute sort of like or 5 minute intervals where it's like, so are you having fun tonight? I mean, it's a cool vibe and it can cut together as an interesting sort of 5 minute video, but we're like, that's not really the heart of what we're trying to do. That being said, in 5 minutes, if we get 5 minutes with an artist, Shane can probably knock out a fucking killer digital dessert.
Yeah.
So we're like, this year, they gave us a studio, not the fishbowl in the heart of everything, but kind of back in the bowels of the area. Still very nice of Bell Media to give us the studio because it looked really great. And it was like, we're going to funnel people in for the digital desserts. So I was there basically just to help support Shane, make sure people got in. And then also I was supposed to do an interview with Aquafina at the end of the night after she was done her hosting duties. And I did end up chatting with Aquafina. But so I was really hanging around for the potential of talking to Bibi Rexa. We were going to do 20 minutes with her, former podcast.
Yeah.
And then Aquafina. Bibi did not happen. Aqua did come by and we had a chat, but ultimately it was a 5-minute chat and we got wrapped. And so it doesn't really lend itself to, again, the 20-minute sort of
long-form pod.
Long-form pod. Yeah. So that was my experience of the show. And I guess we'll get to the partying after. But I guess we will now, since we were focused on Shane's digital desserts, hand him the mic.
Well, when you said bowels, you were right, because that was a shit night. So you mentioned off the top here that you're shooting a music video with Mark Myers.
Your partner.
Yeah, and so one of the reasons I'm not involved in that project is because I had to make a decision where to put my time. And with the MMVAs this weekend and you shooting the video the day after the MMVAs, because it's a 2-day shoot, I decided it would not be fair to Mark if I had been splitting my time, or my focus rather. So I put all my focus into these digital desserts that were supposed to happen on the MMVA night. And they were pretty big guests, I thought. 98 Degrees,
Yep.
Marshmallow,
Yep.
JWoww, and 5 Seconds of Summer, which although I'm not familiar with, I hear they're like a very big act for young people.
Be huge.
So I was like, fuck, that's going to be a lot to do in a very short period of time, because I've never done more than one in a day. In fact, 2 in 2 days I find to be a lot. So I got a bit of a writing team together. My friend Paul Moncrief, who's like a professional writer for a living, and Sean Dawson, who Birchall says is the best writer in our group. So I thought
Sean is very
I
fun.
thought it would be good to hire these guys, and I couldn't pay them, but I did offer them a credit should this ever end up on TV or something, because we did have a film crew there.
Fuck, man. We should have got them into the parties as part of it. I didn't know they were like working on it. We could have got them wristbands.
Yeah, I know. I thought of that late.
That would have been a good gift.
I know.
Next year, fellas, if you're listening.
I know. It was just, I was so hectic. I didn't even think, because the party was so secondary to me. It was just like getting the work done. And also, I had my wife make a fake marshmallow helmet, which sounds easy, right? Because his helmet's pretty rudimentary, but she put some work into it, actually made it pretty good. And, you know, she's been going through, I think I can talk about this because she did a blog post about it, but she's having like postpartum depression and stuff. So the last thing she wanted was to be making this helmet, and she was kind of wanted me to be around the family this weekend, etc. But I'm like, I need to make this awesome. This is like a big shot for me. So I also got an opportunity to get semi-permanent tattoos. And since 98 Degrees was going to be one of the interviews, I thought it would be good if I got a 98 degree tattoo on my chest. And then the whole bit was going to be showing Nick Lachey, who has the 98 degree tattoo, that, oh, look, I have this tattoo. Of course, he has since covered up that tattoo. And then it would be awkward because he would be like, oh, I actually covered it up. And I'd be like, oh, I guess it's a stupid tattoo anyway. But there's another guy in the band named Jeff who still has the tattoo. So then it would create comedy and awkwardness between me and Jeff from 98 Degrees. But as I got this semi-permanent tattoo, I realized he's going to think it's a joke or it's fake unless I up the ante. So I decided to get a word tattooed on my face, like Post Malone or all these young little Zayn rapper type people get. And it was taking me hours and hours to come up with the idea for what word to get on my head. Obviously, no regrets would be overly comedic and stuff like that, but I didn't want to tip people off that it was fake by making it too funny.
You wanted them to think it was an authentic tattoo.
I needed to get the most pretentious word possible.
Right.
And as you guys can probably read the word on my head.
Oh, yeah.
It was death. So it's just above my eyebrow. And these last 3 weeks, these tattoos. So this, as I'm talking to you guys, I have a tattoo that says death on my head right
Lauren DM'd me the picture today of you and Alex. And she's like, is this real? Like, she really thought it was a real tattoo.
My parents think it was real. My father-in-law, my mother-in-law thought it was real. They were having like my mother-in-law actually messaged Alex and said, I didn't think Shane was like this. This is changing the way I think about him. Yeah, and she had to like break it to her that it was obviously for a bit.
Do you think if it said life, the reaction would have been a little bit more positive?
Yeah.
It's kind of nihilistic.
There was a thing that it was going to be art is life was going to be, but that was too like on the nose. And that's why I missed your lights thing.
Yes.
But I want to thank Linda Yaya for that opportunity because I did get it for free and I got like free beers and it was a pretty cool event held by Innis and Gunn and Inkbox for the people who did it. I actually have a bunch of people to thank.
Shout out.
I'd like to thank Mark Myers also for taking on the video that I passed out on.
Abandoned.
Erica, who came down to help out.
Yeah.
And Véronique, who, of course, is the digital dessert intern.
Won a contest, and you're going to be talking to her later.
Yeah, I just want to get the lowdown of her first week as being employed by us. I guess if they're not getting paid, can they still be employed?
Hanging out with us.
Yeah, she's hanging out, helping out. I'd like to thank Rob Farina, who gave me a real marshmallow head. So Marshmallow is this really famous DJ for people who don't know. So I had my wife make a fake marshmallow head, and Rob Farina actually provided me with Marshmallow's actual head. Because I guess he's buddies with Marshmallow. Marshmallow had signed a head, given it to Rob Farina.
Yeah, Rob's the head of iHeartRadio Canada, so he's got those ins.
Because I had a pretty good bit with Marshmallow, because Marshmallow, he does not talk in interviews. So I'm like, what am I going to do with this guy? He can pretty much just nod or communicate through a translator through a laptop. So I was like, okay, I'll have some fun with that. And I had a former intern named Ryan Cisnet. I wanted to use him in a kind of actor capacity. So the bit was going to be while I'm talking to Marshmallow, Ryan Cisnet walks in holding a marshmallow helmet and goes, all right, guys, I'm ready for my interview. And then I'm like, what the? Who's the real Marshmallow? And then Ryan Cisnet, he's absolutely ripped. Like, he has like a scary ripped body. And to prove he was Marshmallow, he was going to do this, take his shirt off and dance and just say, I'm Marshmallow. I'm Marshmallow. Like, well, that proves it. And then we were going to have Véronique, the intern, participate. And she was going to walk in wearing a marshmallow fake helmet that my wife had spent time making, and then she was going to come in and say, stop, I am the real Marshmallow. That's right, the future is female. And it was and it was going to be like Marshmallow's actually a woman DJ, because I was going to be doing a line of questioning, why aren't any women DJs?
That's funny.
So it was going to be kind of humorous. I was really proud of this bit. In my mind, it was set up to be the best digital dessert. Anyway, long story short, no one came by. And even though we had set up these interviews, confirmed for 10 minutes with each person, not one person did this, any of the digital desserts. So all this work, the missed opportunity, not directing the Arkells music video for me, is kind of all down the drain. So we were in the bowels. Yeah, exactly. So I was really, insert toilet noise here. I'm just a guy with a death tattoo and no digital, no digital desserts. But Scott Hellman did come by, and this other girl named Madison Beer, who has like 11 million followers. I fucked around with them for a bit, but really, you got to do prep on these things. It's like, Sacha Baron Cohen, Nathan Fielder, all those bits you see on TV that are presumably just off the cuff or improv. They have a team of writers working on them. All the conceits are planned well in advance. So much prep goes into all those. And it's just when you don't have it, it's just like, it doesn't work. But I will try to turn those into something so at least it wasn't totally fruitless, because we did hire 2 camera people. Yeah. It's kind of a waste of resources, in my opinion. So I was a little disappointed. I also want to thank, in lieu of that, Hayden Christensen, because he's the fucking coolest guy ever. He is way bigger star than kind of 98 Degrees or some of the people who turned down. the interview, and he did one of my favorite digital desserts, just for a guy being a cool, down-to-earth guy who is at one point the biggest star in the world, doesn't have to do my stupid segment, and did like a full cooking show with me. And I literally could have lit him on fire, and he would have been cool with it. That's how down he was to do a bit. He wasn't scared to look silly or anything, and he just saw that it was a fun bit. And then at the MMVAs, I'm walking around, and he just, like, I see him, but I'm like, he's not going to want to talk to me. He's just like, Shane, hey, and shakes my hand. Is like, where's your wife? And just gets into how fun it was to shoot a bit with me. But anyway, I appreciate him a lot more after being rejected by all those digital desserts.
I met Hayden because he was cruising around the party with Chaos. And I was like, hey, I produced the Mike on Much podcast. Both Mike and Shane said they had an awesome time with you. And his eyes kind of lit up. He's like, it was a wicked time. So
that's nice.
We all have our Hayden Christensen story now.
Yeah.
Good.
How do we get him into our life? Make him a part of the Champagne
Let's
Boys.
just add him to the Champagne Boys group.
I'm surprised you didn't get his number. You're pretty good at that usually.
Maybe we just add him to Facebook and then just...
I don't think he fucks with that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well,
he's not a social media guy. Did you listen to the interview?
I know,
Max?
I did.
But yeah, that was my experience. Then
But the after party, you did get to meet 98 Degrees.
Yeah.
Are you saving that?
Saving what?
That story?
Yeah, okay, yeah, but I was just so over them. At that point, I was
I thought it was going to be some big redemption story at the end.
No, basically they were just behind us, and I was like, do you want a photo? And he was just kind of like, I got the tattoo. Like, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Like, but really, this weekend, all I cared about was the work. And the party was like meaningless. The party was only worth celebrating had we got this victory. There was literally no like, yes, we did it.
Yeah, you were doing like... your drinking had a tinge of sadness to it, whereas everybody else was enjoying the evening.
Yeah, it just sucked. Like, it was just a bad feeling because I know it's the name of the game to, like, plan and then things may fall through the cracks. It was just a bad weekend for, a lot of people put in a lot of effort and it's all for naught. And I just hate when other people are putting in effort, like literally actors. My wife was slaving over this. I had a team of writers. And then seeing 98 Degrees to get the photo was a little anticlimactic just to put it up for. I think it did get 300 likes, 12 comments.
Hey, man, it's the small victories. I think that, it's like any of these things. And so many people here work so hard to, like, give us a studio, to book these people. Like, everybody on Sarah McLaren's team, Greg Stewart, all these people are trying their hardest to get us these opportunities. And I know that they're just as disappointed when these things don't work out as well.
Yeah, and my advice to any celebrity who thinks they're too good for an interview is don't ever think that, because someone probably put in a lot of prep time, and just fucking spend 10 minutes of your life doing the interview.
And ultimately, one day, people aren't going to want to talk to you.
And you don't know how big that interviewer is, if something's going to, be really good for you. Yeah. And if it's not, who cares? It's just another 10 minutes of your life.
So that was the MMV experience. Anything else? Nothing else stood out, fellas? I mean, a bust for Shane. We all did get together and have a good time. I felt like afterward.
Yeah, we had a great time. It was fun going to this after party for me because we got to meet up with Dan, your brother, Sean Menard. And so there was a bit of a gang out there. So,
yeah, it was a good crowd.
And I did appreciate that. Manager Ash was also wickedly hungover. And we had a lot of stuff to do on Monday. And she never really, she's always has her eyes on the prize. Like, she does not get distracted by the party, especially if there's work to be done. She, lives for work. And she lost her wallet.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so all of Monday she was, running around doing, a press shoot with lights and the music video was starting with us, and she's didn't know where her wallet was, and I was like, just call Franz. There's a very good chance at 4 a.m, that's when you lost it. She called it. Wallet was at Franz.
Wow.
With the money in it too.
Happy ending.
Yeah, happy ending.
So I hope that gave our listeners sort of a behind-the-scene look at how Shane does his digital desserts, how much prep he puts into them, and obviously it's a bummer that it didn't go down the way we wanted it, but I think that we're going to get lots more as time goes by. And
I'm told Rob Friend said there's a chance I could still get Marshmallow in the future because he's friends with him. So.
Oh, good.
I'm hopeful.
We're holding you to that, Rob.
So, fellas, today on the show, like I said off the top, we have Brent Butt, the star of Corner Gas for 6 seasons, and now they have the animated show out. I know Shane had one experience with him for the digital dessert, which I thought you guys had actually a good rapport. Mildly antagonistic, but good.
I liked it. I like being roasted a little bit. I think he just didn't want any alt humor bullshit. And yeah, he had his way with me.
Yeah, and for our listeners, you will see that at some point down the road as we compile all of these digital desserts that Shane's been talking about. I enjoyed my talk with him just because, again, he's a guy that's sort of been in our consciousness. He's on TV all the time, stand-up comedian. Like I said, we did this at JFL, and it was a good chat. We got into a lot of stuff. The man performed for the Queen of England.
Really?
That's right. We get into that in the conversation. Yeah, so I guess we will get to Brent Butt. For anybody that is tuning in for the first time, maybe you're a huge Corner Gas fan. If you want to go back and listen, we have over 100 episodes you can find anywhere you get your podcast. iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and now on Spotify. So please check us out. Over 100 conversations, like I said, with musicians, actors, directors, and an astronaut. I know I say this every week. Okay, guys, do you want to get to Brent Butt?
Let's get to it.
Let's do it. Let's throw you on the mic. We're just going to be rolling on this.
Let's roll it, because there's a lot of magic going on that we're missing.
Just talking about gear.
Yeah, I love to talk about the gear.
Are you a big gearhead?
No, well, I wouldn't say I'm a big gearhead, but I've become. My wife is. She shakes her head because she'll see me with a laptop up for a couple hours nonstop, and she'll go, "Are you watching microphone reviews again?" Yeah, I'm watching. What happened with me is I started an audio podcast called the Buttpod. I started at a bad time because I was in the middle of producing a new TV series. Why don't I also do a podcast? But anyway, I thought, what I should do is I should have a video component. So I started a YouTube channel for the Buttpod. And I've since become much more fascinated with the video component. I started doing
the audio.
Because I can, with the video component, I can do it myself.
Yep.
With the podcast, you have to schedule guests and stuff, as you know, and it can be logistically difficult, and I'm on the road a lot, and I'm traveling. If I bring my camera along, I can just shoot my own little vlog. So I've ended up, I do that when I go on the road doing stand-up or whatever. So I throw up all kinds of stuff on my YouTube channel.
Have you always been naturally sort of DIY? Like, meaning, like, you're talking about looking at reviews on YouTube or...
Not really. I mean, I guess it depends what you mean by DIY. I'm not a guy who can... I mean, I've always said I'm a starter. I'm really good at starting things. And I have a lot of initiative in that way. I'm not a tremendous finisher. I often start things that never see the end of day. So, but I'm always keen to start something new, and not knowing about it has never really been a deterrent to me. I'm always like, I can either learn it or I can find somebody who knows. Let's just do it. So that's kind of how I dove in with the podcasting.
Okay, well, I want to go back a bit, just because I'm always fascinated by comedians and their careers, and because it's such a creative sort of endeavor, whether it's like people that go into music or comedy, it's an unconventional career, and the sort of success rate is very low.
Yeah.
So making the leap, like where it's like you do something because it's fun or you have a yearning, and then sort of shifting to a career mindset, meaning how am I going to make this a viable career? I'd read that you literally were drywalling in 1988, and then you decided to jump up and do some stand-up in Saskatchewan.
No, that's not really the case. I was drywalling, but that was just to pay the bills. This would have been... Well, I was drywalling in like 86, 87. And then I started publishing a comic book with a buddy of mine. I had an idea of... This is kind of a long story, but I had an idea for an 8-page filler for a comic book that I thought if we like I draw, and my buddy was into comic books. I was going to get him to help me write it. I thought if we make this 8-page filler, there's a chance we could sell it to Marvel, because at the time they were looking for 8-page fillers for the back of their larger magazines like Conan the Barbarian, Savage Sword of Conan, that kind of thing. So I told my buddy this idea I had for an 8-page filler, and he was like, "Oh, that's really interesting." Then he went away, and the next day he said, "Let's go for coffee again." Overnight, he'd flushed this thing out into an epic, it could go on forever. And I was like, ugh, now we're never going to be able to sell it. So now we have to do it ourselves. So that initiative part of me said, well, we just started a publishing company. Yeah, we don't know what we're doing, but so what? So I moved to Saskatoon because he was going back to college. I moved to Saskatoon with him so we could continue making the comic book. And in Saskatoon, there was a comedy club that had amateur night. But my goal the whole time, from the time I was 12, was to do stand-up.
Okay.
So everything was killing time until I could find the opportunity to do stand-up.
And what do you think the impetus of that was? Was it the shows you were watching? Did you have comedians that you were into?
When I was 12, I saw a stand-up comedian for the first time on TV. There was an afternoon talk show. Like where I grew up, we had 2 channels on TV. We had one CBC affiliate and one CBC and one CTV affiliate. CTV had an afternoon talk show. It was called the Alan Hamill Show, and later it became the Alan Thicke Show. So it was like an afternoon talk show. And I was home from school one summer holidays, and this show came on, and it kind of caught my attention. What is this? And they said, and featuring comedian Kelly Monteith. And I was like, comedian? I'll watch this. I like comedy. But I'd never seen a stand-up. I'd seen sketches and, funny acting, sitcoms, stuff like that. I loved comedy, but I'd never seen the guy just standing there talking, doing stand-up. So I watched Kelly Monteith do this, and I was just like, this is the only thing that makes sense. What this guy is doing is the only thing that makes sense to me as a life path.
Yeah.
Anything else is wasting time. I got to do this. And so I went and told my mom after that show. I walked out to the kitchen and said, I want to be a stand-up comedian. So that was kind of always my target. And I first did it in high school, like a variety night, that kind of thing, tried it out there. And it went well enough that I was encouraged to, I wasn't dissuaded.
So with that, though, so then you start getting up, you start doing these open mics, you're feeling good, you're getting good response. Are you already cognizant of sort of how you can flip this into like a career? Like, how can I do this full time?
I wouldn't say that I was really thinking about it in those terms, like how could I do this full time? I was really just thinking about my act and trying to have funny jokes. And I always kind of thought, I think I looked at it as, this is either going to be something I can make a living at or not. I kind of looked at it like that and didn't worry about it too much. But I came along at a really good time, a good time to start comedy. It was the late 80s. There was a real comedy boom going on.
Sure.
So there were a lot of dinky little rooms where you could make $50 or $75 and you could scratch out a meager existence. It was because there was this real comedy boom on. Every pub had a chicken wing and comedy night, and there were a fair number of comedy clubs. So I was able to, it depends how you define a living, but I was able to not do anything else for those early years. And then after being in it for a while, I started headlining, and then I was making a living.
Was the decision to move to Toronto a difficult one, or was that just the next obvious path or step in your path?
Yeah, I kind of think it's the next obvious path, but the way it happened for me was I'd moved from Saskatoon, where I started doing stand-up, shortly after I moved to Calgary, because that was kind of the Western Canadian booking circuit. And so I was in Calgary for about 5 months or something like that, when another comedian that I barely knew, I'd only met before at a comedy competition, but we kind of hit it off. He was a funny guy, and we kind of became frenzy. But I mean, it was like a day and a half we spent together. Anyway, he called me up out of the blue and he said, listen, I'm driving to Toronto. I think you need to go to Toronto and get seen by the people who booked the country. And I know you don't have any money, you don't have to pay for gas or anything. I'm going anyway, just hop in the car. I said, all right. So I didn't have any possessions with me or anything. I was able to pack in about 11 minutes. And I went to Toronto with him. He came back, him and another comic actually. They both had things to come back for. I didn't. So I said, well, this is where it's at. This is the epicenter of comedy in Canada. I'm going to stay here.
Okay, so how then, I mean, obviously, so like...
I seem like a shifty drifter in the story.
You do, but I like that. That's good. I mean, because I think a lot of people, those are the kind of sort of decisions that people need to make, I think, in order to sort of achieve success in some ways, just sort of like going with it, sort of saying yes, and then leaving things behind. Well, not that you had much to leave behind.
Well, that's the thing. Like I feel like... because people say to me sometimes, they go, well, that was like a brave decision to do. You go, well, it wasn't at all. What's the difference if I have nothing here, I have nothing there? I wasn't leaving a family and a job, or like I literally, it was so easy to go, yeah, that sounds like all right. I'll take the 6 T-shirts that I own and we'll go to Toronto.
Yeah.
There. So I didn't have to choose between this or that. It was just like, oh, guy's going, I'll go. So there were some guys, some guys really have to choose between an established career where they're paying their bills and they're trying to support a kid or something, and then do I chase my dream? I was just never in that position because I was just always chasing this shifty dream.
And then, okay, so you get the TV show Corner Gas. How does that come about? Because were you sort of like, oh, the next step is logically going to be getting a TV show, or, you know, like I think you'd had specials at that point, like stand-up specials?
Yeah, I'd done like one-off stuff, and I was in a position in Vancouver where I was producing comedy specials, one-off stuff. And so I was kind of learning how to produce TV. There was a producer there who hired me to. He would always collect a ton of footage, and then he would say, "Watch this and see if you can turn it into something." That's kind of how I learned to produce television. But anyway, the way it came about, well, I wasn't really thinking about doing a sitcom. Really, it wasn't. You know, forefront of my mind or a piece of the puzzle that
wasn't on your vision board as the goal to get to.
I loved doing stand-up, and I was making a living at it at this point. I was doing a lot of corporate shows, and I was paying the bills, and I was, staying up late and having free cocktails. Everything was pretty good. But what happened was a director that I knew, I had done an episode of Comedy Now for CTV, and my performance on that episode was nominated for a Gemini Award for Best Comedy Performance that year. So this director that I knew, who had directed a stand-up show that I had done for CBC, he said to me, "Listen, CTV's interested to know if you have any TV show ideas, like for a sitcom or whatever." And I said, "Well, I wrote this thing. I wrote a treatment for a show. I can't imagine they'd be interested in it." I told him what it was, about this guy who works at a gas station in the middle of Saskatchewan. I said, "I can't imagine they'd be interested in that." But I'd written it out as a 4-page treatment. Told him about it. He told them about it. They responded positively. They said, "That sounds like it's interesting." So he told me that. I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, polish up that treatment, flush it out, make it as funny and as good as you can make it, and we'll send it to him." We did, and then they wanted to have a meeting, and it just kind of went from there. So it kind of all came about as like, you know, that old saying where opportunities are great, but you have to be prepared for the opportunity.
Sure.
That's what I feel like this was like. It's like this opportunity came along. Do you have something? Yes, here. This is a thing that I wrote. You know what I mean? I was able to not say, "Well, let me go away and come up with something." I was able to say, "Yeah, I have this. What do you think of this?" So I was prepared for the opportunity when it came around, and I'm very glad that I took the time to sit down and, write up this notion I had. What would my life be like if I hadn't pursued stand-up? I'd probably be running a gas station.
And writing something like that, taking the initiative, like with no, it's not like you're commissioned to write something like that. You're just doing it because you enjoy it, and it's like it's being proactive without any guarantees, and then that becomes something that becomes tangible and real.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always had is I like to, if I have an idea that's sticking in my head, I kind of have to purge it. Whatever it is, I have to purge it. Sometimes I'll paint a picture because I'm seeing something in my head. Sometimes I'll write a song because I'm hearing a tune in my head. And until I purge it, it just kicks around in there and gets in the way.
Stays, yeah.
And so I had this idea, like, what would my life be like if I hadn't pursued stand-up? I would probably still be hanging out at the gas station. That idea was kicking around. And it was kind of it also kind of came from, the germ of the idea came from, I was going to write this, I had an idea for a movie. I started to write this movie, and in the movie it took place, the main character ran a gas station in Saskatchewan, in a small town. Anyway, I was writing the movie, and partway through the movie I was realizing, this isn't as good an idea as I thought it was. It's not going to hold up for a whole movie, and the wheels kind of came off the idea. I stopped liking the idea. But what I liked was this setting in this gas station in Saskatchewan. I knew it. The dialogue was coming easy. I was coming up with jokes easily. I liked all that part of it. Just the whole big story wasn't holding together. But I said, I like this guy and his buddies talking in this gas station. So that was kind of the germ of that idea. So it was in my head, so I wrote it down as a 4-page treatment for a TV show, and then just didn't do anything. Then it was out of my head. I didn't have to bother with it anymore.
You parked it, and then
I went back to staying up late and having a few drinks.
Well, I also read that you performed for the Queen.
I did.
When she was here. So that's, to me, that's sort of, when you go into something like that, do you feel like, this is like any other gig? It's like one of those corporate gigs or one of my stand-up gigs? Or are you very cognizant of the fact that you're performing for the Queen?
Yeah, I was very cognizant of the fact. And I was also, a little nervous about it. But you know what stuck with me was that So I'm getting ready to do this show that I know the Queen is going to be at. So I'm not really performing for the Queen. I'm performing for, it was Saskatchewan's 100th anniversary. I was the MC of this big show in an arena. There's 13,000 people there, and it's televised and stuff. So there's a lot to focus on. But I knew the Queen was going to be there. The Queen and Philip. And they're not usually in the crowd, you know. They so often don't come to my shows. I can't even tell you. So I'm definitely thinking about that. But the thing that popped out, I remembered this conversation I had with one of my older brothers when I was little. I was like 6 or 7 or something, and he's 10 years older than me, so he would have been like a teenager. And I remember saying when I was a little kid, I remember distinctly this conversation. I said, you know, I don't think I'd like to meet the Queen, because if she doesn't like you, she could chop your head off. And he's like, the Queen can't chop your head off. He's got no time for my stupid kid behavior. The Queen can't chop your head off. I say, yes, she can. You read it all the time in stories and stuff. The King or Queen, they don't like you off of their head. He's like, that's from 1,000,000 years ago. They don't do that anymore. I was very insistent that, yes, this is how it goes down. And so he said, well, don't worry about it. You're never going to meet the Queen. And so I was like, that whole conversation came back. And after the show, she came on stage and met all of us. And I was like, oh my God, I hope she doesn't lop my head off. I hope I wasn't right about this.
Did you use any of that in your stand-up?
No, I didn't. Because we were kind of told not to really
reference her or make her a focal
not
point.
Too much. But we did one joke. Like the show was put together. I basically wrote my stand-up stuff, but there was 2 guys that wrote on the show. Dean Jenkinson and Al Ray were writing on the show, and they came up, one of them, I can't remember which one of them, it wasn't me, came up with the line, because the new Star Wars movie was opening that same weekend.
Which one was it?
I can't remember which one, but it was the big new Star Wars movie. And the joke that they came up with that I said to the Queen was, you know, thank you for being here with us, honoring us with your presence, Your Majesty, as opposed to going to the new Star Wars movie that I know you probably could have got into also. Something like that. So that was really the only joke that I did to her.
I wanted to ask also, because your partner, your wife, Nancy, has been in the show Corner Gas. You guys did another show together. How do you find the working dynamic when you're working with your wife? Is it easier? Is it more difficult? Do you have to approach it differently?
Not really, because I met her doing Corner Gas.
Yep.
So I didn't know her before. I mean, I knew who she was as an actor. I knew she was a funny person, but I didn't know her until we had cast her to play Wanda in Corner Gas. And I got to know her doing the show. So we're fortunate in that the nebulous or the neutron of our relationship is working. It's a working relationship. So it's very easy for us to work together because that's how we met. You know.
Oh, got you. Right. So it didn't shift then after you guys became involved?
No, not really. I mean, you know, she's an actor. She's an actor. I write and produce, and so we're coming at things from a different place, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and she's very creative, and I bounce ideas off her, you know, and I value her opinion a lot. But we're just coming at things from a different place.
Well, lastly, I mean, you have the animated show.
Yeah, it's out now. The season 1 did gangbusters, the biggest show in Comedy Network history. So we got picked up for a second season. We're in the throes of putting that together now.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, the response from people has been fantastic.
Do you enjoy doing the animated show maybe more so than the other one, or is it hard to compare them?
I enjoy it differently. I wouldn't say more or less. I enjoy both things. Doing the season 1 of animation actually reminded me of season 1 of Corner Gas because there's such a steep learning curve. When we were doing season 1 of Corner Gas, I had never worked on a TV series, putting a TV series together before. You know, that kind of a machine, and there's logistics, and there's a pipeline, and things have to keep moving, you know. I'd always either just done stand-up or did one-off TV specials. So I had to learn the process of doing a TV series, and I relied on a lot of talented people around me who knew what they were doing.
Get you through that first year.
Animation, I went into this not knowing how it all worked. So it was a similar situation to me. It was kind of a nice throwback to, like, I mean, I kind of love being in that situation where you're like, man, I'm in over my head. This is awesome. You know, I really need to start paddling and ask questions, rely on the talents and knowledge of others. and just kind of be the creative direction puller. Say, everybody come this way. Bring your talents and come this way, and figure it out. I ask a lot of questions, keep my eyes and ears open. So in that way, it's very similar to season 1, but it's a different workload for me. So when we were shooting the live action thing, we had to shoot the show, physically shoot the show, have the actors there, and it would be 4 days of filming for an episode. Here, of course, it's just audio, so you get the actors in. So it's only 4 hours of acting per episode.
Yeah.
I mean, less, really. We book 4 hours in the studio to get an episode done. We can usually do 2 in that time. And then everybody goes their separate ways, and you don't have to shave. There's no hair and makeup. There's no costume changes. It's very efficient in that regard. But there's this whole other workload that didn't exist in the live action show, where now we have the acting in the can. Now we have to draw and block the show and create the element and color it and do the whole, it's that whole set of work that didn't exist in the old show. So it's just it's just a different element. But for me, doing the live action show, the workload was nuts, because I would get picked up at 5 or 6 in the morning, and I would go home at midnight and just do it all again tomorrow. And because you're writing one episode, you're writing next week's episode while you're acting in this week's episode and editing last week's episode. Anytime there was no downtime. Anytime we were on a camera turnaround, I had to run to my desk and edit something or write on an episode. There was no. Here with this, I don't have to be on the floor acting and overseeing the shooting and the writing and all that stuff. I can do each of those, from home, really. And
in post, it's like, you do lay down the voices and then build it after that.
Yeah, so it's just a different animal, but equally fun, equally challenging. But I'm getting a bit more sleep. I can do what I need to do in an 8-hour day now.
It's not bad.
Everybody on the team can't. A lot of the animators are working around the clock, but for me, I can actually do an 8-hour day.
Well, thank you for your time, Brent. Really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
Welcome to the dessert, everyone's favorite part. My name is Shane, and I'm here with Véronique.
Véronique, hi. Hello.
I wanted to get an overview of how your first week was, so I wrote like a little intro thing. Okay. My name is Shane, and I'm here with the lucky winner of Shane's Digital Dessert Intern Contest. It's the end of her first week on the job, and we're going to find out what it's like and why interning is totally cool. Who is the mystery winner? Well, it's no mystery at all. Her name is Véronique, and she's going to tell us why interning is très chic. Now, Véronique, tell us about your first week.
First off, I guess I would say it's actually pronounced Véronique. Just going to start off on a good foot here.
Picky with the name.
I know. All right. I guess, obviously, there have been some ups and downs of my first week, as most first weeks go. I'll start with the good things. Or do you want the good or the bad first?
There's bad.
If you want a fair review, then yes.
Let's talk about the pros.
Okay. Well, I got to go to the MMVAs, which was very cool. That was very exciting. I had a custom-built marshmallow helmet, which was very cool.
Why did you have a custom-built marshmallow helmet?
Well, there was this bit planned with Marshmallow where I was going to come in and pretend to be Marshmallow while Shane was interviewing Marshmallow and be like, I'm the real Marshmallow. There was also somebody else that was going to be the real Marshmallow.
So you were going to get to meet a celebrity.
Yeah, I was very excited for that. I'm not going to lie. Moving on with other pros, I got to meet Alex, Shane's wife. She's super nice. I also got to meet Hayden Christensen, who's also super nice. And I gained about 4 Instagram followers. So.
Were you a fan of Hayden Christensen before? Were you a Star Wars fan?
I've actually never seen any Star Wars movies, so a little bit missed on me, but that's okay. He was still very nice.
Oh, jeez. I thought everyone was a Star Wars fan. I'm not either. That's why.
Yeah,
I thought I was the only one.
I don't know. My French parents never made me watch it, so.
Oui.
Life. Oui. That's about it for the highlights.
That's it for the pros.
Yep.
Well, hey, it was only the first week, and that's where I come from, is a jam-packed week. You got to go to the MMVAs.
Yep.
You got to meet some celebs.
Yep.
Is pluralizing that okay?
I mean, I guess Scott Hellman and Melissa Madison Beer.
Oh,
Melissa
you didn't
Beer?
include them in your little pro?
Yeah, they were all right. I've met Scott Hellman before, and I don't really know who Madison Beer is.
Okay.
I still can't remember if it's Madison or Melissa, but life.
All right. Well, what a week it was.
What a week, really.
Now, all things being fair, I guess let's talk about the cons.
So, as you might have just heard, I've met 3 people, which means that we didn't have any of our actual planned guests at the MMVAs.
Yeah,
So-
that's rough.
So, as much as the marshmallow helmet was cool, would have been cooler if Marshmallow was in the room also. But
Yeah, even the best laid plans, they don't always work out.
yeah. Which, I mean, I guess that meant I had to spend all night with Mike and Shane, which was all right, but they're no celebs or anything.
It's true. We are not celebs. Technically, we're not.
Technically, to most. I also have gotten no pictures with any celebs, so that was part of the deal, I believe.
Fuck, I forgot about that. Oh my God.
I guess my next thing that was also part of the deal is that my picture of Max was supposed to be signed. And here I am with a no signature picture of Max.
Couldn't find a marker. If you actually listen to the intern contest, you can hear Max looking for a marker. He's like, oh, I got to find a marker.
I need to find a silver Sharpie.
Yep.
Okay, we will get you that.
Thank you. Hayden Christensen recognized Shane on the street, but not me. And I'd like to think I was equally as important in that interview as Shane was. So that was unfortunate.
Because you did hang out with Hayden for a bit.
Yeah, I walked him out of the building. We talked about pizza Lunchables and stuff.
Would you say that's cooler than getting a picture?
Yes, I like the story better than the picture, probably, I guess.
Okay, cool.
Are we moving that to the pros list?
Yeah. Let's move. Let's pop
All right,
it over.
all right.
I'm assuming this con list can't go much longer.
Yeah, we're about there. I learned that I'm filming B-roll instead of actual footage and feeling very upstaged by the camera crews that actually know what they're doing.
Oh, okay. You thought you were going to really be filming.
Yeah. I thought I was like number one camera person.
In some cases, you will be. I'll tell you that.
Okay, all right. I look forward to those times. So Shane says he wants people to be early, but when I am here early, I'm hanging out on the street for like 20 minutes.
See, I like when people are early because that means they'll be on time. Because often when people think they're going to be on time, they're late. So
Yeah.
for me, everywhere I go, I'm always early, and I'm always just chilling in a Starbucks for 20 minutes. I thought people liked that.
Okay, I was hoping to operate the Cobra Cam.
Cobra, see, that was
Haven't
never
seen it
agreed
yet.
upon.
No, that was just a hope of mine, and it hasn't happened.
Had I had known that, okay, I will bring the Cobra Cam in next.
Perfect. So I guess another thing is that I've introduced myself as Véronique a million times, and I still get Véronique.
So you're one of those people who likes their name said correctly.
I mean, yeah, my parents gave me that name for a reason. Let's stick to it.
Okay, gotcha.
So another thing about the MMVAs is that I was kind of hoping, I mean, it's the MMVAs, it's a big night, we're splurging a little bit, that there'd be some food provided for the intern. I mean, I know I'm not supposed to get paid, but even just paying for my transport that night, like I was walking around in nice shoes, like...
Right, it is a special night, and I
Yeah.
guess it was about 4 or 5 hours. So we'll write down food because eating's important for just living.
Yeah, I mean there was water.
Yeah, you can survive on that. I heard you
I-
can survive without food and just water for like 18 days or something like that.
Well, I was off to a good start at the MMVAs there.
Jeez, I feel bad now. Fuck, I thought you could have snagged an hors d'oeuvre. I guess when you got the crew wristband, they don't even let you get those.
Yeah, there were weird rules at the MMVAs about where we were allowed to go. We could get food from one place or beverages from one place, and then we couldn't go past a certain way, and then the place that we could bring beverages back from didn't let us get beverages from there. So it was a whole mix-up. And as much as I wanted to be like helpful and go get beverages for the pod people, I literally could not. So, sorry.
Right. I'd like to say beggars can't be choosers, but you're not really a beggar as an intern.
I mean, another MMVA bit here. So Mike and I are getting ready for the little bit of chat that we're going to have with Aquafina. I say we. I was in the room, but Mike was doing all the talking.
Another celebrity you got to see.
Yes, I got to see Aquafina. No picture again, but that's fine. So Shane just disappears. He doesn't even really say bye or anything. I didn't actually realize he left. And then I get a text from him being like, make sure the camera makes its way back to my desk. That's how I imagine Shane talks in my head.
It is.
And I was like, I don't know where your desk is. I'm feeling completely lost now. And so Mike, being the gracious host that he is, brought me up and we put the camera there and then I left.
So I should have said bye.
Bye would have been nice. Maybe a thank you. Not that I did much because we didn't have any guests, but
I was saving it for now. First of all, bye. Secondly, thank you. And geez, so when I ask you to put something somewhere, you'd like to know where the location is that I'm asking you to put it.
I mean, asking me to put something somewhere I've never been is kind of a strange ask. Am I supposed to, was I supposed to just wander around? Let's say Mike wasn't there. What would I have done?
That's a good one. That's a good question.
Does everybody in this building know who you are? Could I have been like, where's Shane Cunningham's desk? And they would have figured it out?
I only talk to Mike, really. You bring up a good point. I'll say I'm sorry. I'll say bye. And I'll say thank you.
Perfect. Nice little bow on that.
Yeah.
Something that was actually kind of nice is that I was invited to the after party. So thank you for that. That was cool.
You're welcome. I was waiting for that. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. But I mean, I didn't actually make it to the after party. So the reason being is that the bus only comes till a certain hour, and I thought I was good. I assumed that Shane would have given me a heads up, considering he takes the bus in and out of Toronto every day back to Hamilton, where we were both from. I assumed that he would have told me that, hey, last bus is at this hour, you should probably make it. You might not make it to the after parties. But all night they're, getting my hopes up, like, hey, we'll see you at the after party. And I was like, yeah, and then I couldn't actually make it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was super excited to go to the MMVAs. Like, I was really looking forward to it. I was telling Shane how I've been watching the MMVAs for, like, my whole life, basically. And I was looking forward to seeing kind of, like, the space we were going to be in. I know last year they were in this great space where people were just walking by. Guess you could see them from the hallway trying to... I don't know if you guys remember Gigi Hadid walking by and the guys trying to get her in.
Oh, Gigi. Oh, Gigi, come in, say hello. Gigi, come on, get it, Gigi. What's she doing? Show her on camera. Oh. No, we got
she's doing the drinking.
We got drinks. We got a tender.
Oh, we were so close.
Oh.
I was looking forward to that. I thought it would be fun to try and pull random celebs in.
So you thought you were going to be like in the middle of the action?
Yeah. And it turns out we were in some random office in some back hallway behind a bunch of curtains in the dark, basically. Which, I mean, the room was cool. The room itself, once you got in there, was cool. The walk to it was a little sad. So we had a hard time pulling people in, even pulling the people we were supposed to have.
You could hear the action, though.
I could, yeah. I saw some people walk by from afar.
Through the curtains.
I could tell they were important because they were real shiny, if you know what I mean. So that was all right.
But we did shoot 2 digital desserts.
Well, sort of. You talked to some people, and it was awkward, and you asked them if your tattoos looked real, but I wouldn't... I mean, the 4 that we had planned that would have been funny didn't actually happen.
Yeah, a little technicality. But the digital desserts need a lot of planning. We could only get 2 celebrities.
I mean, you did turn some down, which was borderline offensive.
Because I got caught off guard. Because at one point, Mike came in and he goes, do you remember the guy's name?
Francisco Yates?
Yeah. It's like, hey, Francesco Yates is here. Do you want to do one with him? I go, no, I don't know who that is. And then I look behind Mike's shoulder, and Francesco Yates is there wearing like a glittery outfit.
Shiny, I'm telling you.
Yeah, and he just looks so sad.
Yeah, I think you crushed his spirit.
And
you really did.
And then you were like, Shane, you got to start saying yes to people because we're not going to get anyone. And then I got scared on a couple more. And then I finally agreed to do them, and they were just terribly awkward.
Yes. Well, you kept looking to me, being like, who is this person? And I was like, I live under a rock. I have no idea.
But you knew Francesco.
No, I didn't. I knew Scott Hellman.
Oh.
That was it. I like Scott Hellman.
Okay. So that must have been a bit of a thrill.
Like I said, though, I've met him before.
So you don't like reliving experiences?
I mean, new experiences are more fun.
All right, well, you heard it here first. Interning is one hell of a trip. When she's not in heaven, she's in hell, man. Scott Hellman, that is. That might not be the... Yeah, you know what I mean. Okay, thank you for coming, V. And
yeah,
I'm going to take these notes into consideration because I do think they're all valid points.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I mean, so far, like I said, ups and downs, and I hope it only goes up from here.
Yeah, out of 10, what are we rating this internship so far?
are we going based on, like, because my list of cons was way longer, which means it's got to be below 5. But I don't feel overall it's below 5.
Well, you know, sometimes you're just having such a good time, you're almost speechless.
Yeah, let's leave it at that.
There you have it.
As long as I don't sound like I'm ungrateful. Like, I just want to make sure that the people know that I'm super happy to be here, and this is great.
You're welcome.
That's it. That's all. That's our episode. Thank you so much for tuning in.
The Mike on Much podcast can be found on Twitter and Instagram at Mike on Much. Give us a follow. Give us a comment. We want to be in touch with you. Subscribe to the show on iTunes. You can find the podcast wherever podcasts are found. Huge thank you to Tara Paquette and Jenna Gregory for putting together the artwork. And huge thank you to all the people in the building here that got us into the party.
They make it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Brent Butt for coming on. Thank you to Véronique for coming on in the dessert with Shane. The Mike and Much podcast is produced by Max Kerman. I'm your host, Mike Veerman. See you next week if we don't die on the weekend.